once I really like someone, I'm like, oh, I love you. I want to do everything with you. I'm very like, see, I don't want to use words because then I'm just putting myself, I'm shooting myself in the foot. But what's a nicer way of saying like possessive? I think I just like, it's not that, right? It's I like a sense of security and a sense of stability. And I think I find that with people that I really click with, because I haven't had the best experiences growing up, especially with friends and with people that I'm close to. So when I find someone like yourself that I'm like, oh, do you know what, we really click, I kind of want to hold on to it as much as I can because I'm afraid that it's going to go away. Maybe this is like me therapying myself. I don't really know.
I mean, most of these episodes are just us giving ourselves therapy.
I mean,
Do
it's
you
more when I'm
think?
finding a real therapist.
Do you think the whole idea of बड़ों से ऐसे बात नहीं करते is rooted in the same concept that your parents can't, or your elders can't understand, can't fathom the fact that who you were at 5 years old is not the same person you are at 25, and that because your thinking has changed and because you've been exposed to so many different things that they don't necessarily have exposure to or don't think the same way, that suddenly because you're a different person they think that A, they're losing you, and B, um, they're so against it that they won't allow you to grow, and that translates into them thinking that you're disrespectful.
Yeah, and actually, now thinking out loud, I think it's also the opposite. So I think us as individuals, we try not to because you've been with this X person, let's say your grandparents, for X amount of years. You're like, do you know what? I don't want to ruin this relationship. I don't want to come off disrespectful. I don't want to lose the relationship that we have. Um, and there's a lot of things that I think you let elders get away with because you're afraid of losing them. Because as the older you get, probably the more temperamental you get, and you know that you don't want to lose that sense of security because of something you've said. But I don't. At the same time, you know, my argument always is. So I normally get the. I normally get them saying something like, if you learn how to speak Urdu, it sounds so much nicer when you say it in Urdu. It just doesn't sound very nice when you say it in English. You sound very like passionate about it, or very harsh, or very aggressive. And I'm like, yeah, but then you didn't ask me to like continuously speak Urdu in the family, for one. And secondly, how can you always bring up the nationality or the culture that you've raised me in when you chose to bring me here? So you can't you can't choose to be Pakistani when it suits you, and then when it suits you, you're super British and super like modern thinking. It's not badtamizo se baat nahi karte. It's not I'm being badtamiz when I speak to an adult. It's this is how I know how to um this is the way that I know how to share my opinion or communicate, the same way that when you know people speak in their native language, like our South Asians, some of them use a lot of swear words, a lot of like aggressive words, but because it's in the beautiful language it is, they're like, no, but it's fine. But it's not, because respect comes two ways.
Yeah, I understand that, and I don't agree with the say it in Urdu it sounds better thing either, because whatever I'm saying, if you understand what I'm saying, if you understand where I'm coming from, then it shouldn't matter what language I say it in.
Yeah.
And you touched on a really important thing, which is respect is two ways, which is something that is very difficult to find, I think, in South Asian culture, where everyone, even if they're, I mean, since we're children, we're told to respect someone even if they're like a month older than us. Call them baji, call them bhai, call them appa, call them khala. And that's where it starts. That's where the so for some reason respect is synonymous to um pleasing
Yeah.
blindly. And I find that there's a lot of issues with that. I was watching Jeffrey Epstein, the 4 episode limited series on Netflix, and it's very interesting, and it's there's a lot of triggers in there, but it's fascinating how power and the whole dynamic and how it works. And I think one of the biggest reasons, because there is a lot of abuse and harassment in South Asian culture from our elders, from people that you would expect to protect you and all. And I think one of the reasons is because from such a young age you are told that no matter what, no matter how uncomfortable you are, if someone is older than you, then you do what they say. I mean, you're 2 years old and like the auntie is like pinching your cheeks and you don't like it. But that's how early on we learn that if someone is elder than you, then you do whatever they say, and they just deserve respect automatically.
That's it. And complete trigger warning for anyone who is listening at this point. I want to make that really clear. But that's how a lot of people come into bad situations, especially South Asian cultures. There is a lot of abuse going on, and normally it's with people that are in your family, and normally it's men, either men to men or men to women, whichever. But normally men are the reason, because you are taught that your uncle will respect them, or there's a manipulation game, or they very much make you feel like you cannot say something, because if you say something you're on the wrong, and if you say something then your family's gonna like disown you, right? So they always bring it back down to the victim.
And the fact is that is what happens. That if you do speak out, then that is what happens, and that's the norm, and that's why you don't do it.
That's it. And so actually just earlier this week I was at my cousin's house, and we were having exactly this conversation with my cousins and my auntie, and they're from Indian heritage, and I'm from Pakistani, and they were saying, you know what, there's more abuse in India. And I was like, no, there's more abuse in Pakistan. But it wasn't a competition, it was more like the stories that we know of, and the things that are hidden. And they were like, but ultimately, regardless of where you're from, it comes down to the fact that you cannot disrespect these elders because your elders do not believe you, firstly. So, and secondly, if you were to go, then it makes the family look bad. So you don't want to bring shame or shame on the family, because who would want that? So you keep yourself quiet. But unfortunately, that's why it messes up a lot of South Asians, like mentally, physically, emotionally, because you don't know where you can discuss this, that you don't know who you can talk to. And the worst thing is when you do raise it, because I've had these conversations with other people, when you do raise it, do you know what your elders say? Aise hota hai. You're not the only one. Or actually, this person's uncle, this person's auntie, actually it happens, but why are we okay with it happening? Like, why is it so normalized that if somebody tells you something, you're like, oh, but it happens. So what? So you grab a knife and you stab someone, mate. It's not it happens, it's not okay. Then, what's the point of having elders to look after you if they're not getting a gun out and shooting someone? And this is not advocating like violence, but this is that anger that should be inside of you, that anyone in my mind, and I'm very honest about this, in my mind, anyone that conducts or is any kind of sexual abuser, honestly, deserves the death sentence there and then. Like, I don't even have two ways to think about it. And that's just me as an opinion. My opinion is, if you are doing something physically to some other human being and it has caused them harm, I'm sorry, but you've got to go.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily even physical. There's a lot of mental harm. There's a lot of manipulation, and it doesn't even have to be sexual. There's a lot of bullying. Within our culture, you'll have that uncle who constantly talks about how fat you are, constantly. Or you'll have an auntie who does that, who is constantly making fun of your eyebrows. And it's a culture of staying quiet because that's considered respectful. And not just the child, but the parents. The parents don't stand up for their kids. They always, there's always an element of shame within themselves that, oh no, I have to look like I'm very well behaved and respectful to this other person who's making fun of my child. I have, there's instances where I've been having a conversation in my own house where, another elder is sitting there and they interrupt me and they talk over me. And I'm like, that was rude, but I'm not allowed to say anything because I need to respect you. But the fact is, I don't respect you because I don't think you deserve it.
Yeah, it's same thing in my household. We've the last few years we've all grown into our own. So obviously I come from like 4 siblings, and we've all grown into our own identity. And so the whole thing that you used to do when you're younger, you know, go on these like continuous family breaks, or, and I don't mean like immediate family, I mean extended family. So like go for extended family picnics, or you know, when you have a birthday or an event, you're like, you have to invite this person and that person and that person, because what will this person's that person's friend say about you? That like societal thing of what will the other person say? Log kya kahenge, yeah? That's literally the core of it. But then we've come to this point where we've grown up, and we've come to the acknowledgement that actually we don't respect a lot of our uncles. It's probably
and aunties.
You know, we just don't. We don't because our definition of an uncle is not who these people play out to be, right? I'm just using uncle as an example. You can obviously change it up for like auntie, grandmother, granddad, whoever. But this definition of this one role that you've grown up to think is not how they're playing out. And so if you have no conversation, if you have no relationship, where does that respect come from? Because at some point you're an adult and you make your own decisions. I get it until the age of like 16, 18, where they're like, you're a kid and you need to abide by the rules. Okay, but if I'm 20 something years old and this person is not doing it for me, and there is no mutual understanding, and every time I speak to them, they either treat me like a 3-year-old or they think I'm wrong, then the respect goes, because you don't, the respect goes, and honestly, like, you don't even deserve my time.
I think the fact about the respect going away is that as we grow older, and this happens with our parents as well, as we grow older, we realize that elders don't actually know everything.
Yeah.
Because when you're younger, you're in awe of everyone who's older than you, because you're like, oh, I haven't experienced anything, and you know, they're so much older and they can cook and they can do this and they can do that, they can drive. And then slowly, as you become an adult, you're like, I don't know anything at this age, so I'm pretty sure you don't know anything either. And I think it's because they stop being that elder that we put on a pedestal, and they become human. And that is when we really struggle, because we're like, I've been brought up and I've been taught to obey everything you say, and you know, stay quiet in your presence and never go against your opinion or anything that you say. But at the same time, I am now able to process what you're saying, and what you're saying is wrong, or what you're thinking is wrong. And because nowadays we grow up we're growing up as such conscious adults and human beings. We're so much more exposed to the world, and we have so much more access to, you know, different theories and different thought processes. And a lot of these people in our families are stuck in their ways, and for us, staying quiet is more difficult, because like I said, we're more conscious adults, and for us to stay quiet is complicity, and that's difficult. For me personally, that is difficult. I think everyone in my family group hates me now, because if there's even like the slightest racist or sexist joke thrown in there, I will call it out.
You should, because it's wrong. And
this is it. You should. I mean, from a worldwide perspective or like a social perspective, you should call it out, because you shouldn't stay silent because you're allowing it to continue. But at the same time, people within that group will stop talking to you, or they will be like, oh, you can't take anything as a joke, you're just too serious, you know. And it's like, no, if your joke was not offensive, I would laugh at it, but I find it offensive, and I think that you should know why it's offensive.
And the worst thing is, but it's not offensive to you. Come on.
Exactly. This is the thing. I often, obviously there's no one in any group saying something directly to you. It's often to like another group of people, or someone, a celebrity or something. And standing up for someone else is considered so weird, because in our culture, people don't stand up for their own kids. You know, like you said earlier, about the, you know, if you speak out about what's happened to you, people won't believe you. They will always believe the elder person. Or B, they'll just be like, so what? It happened to me. It happened to that person. Deal with it. You know, we don't raise our children we don't raise our children as humans. We don't respect them and their growth. We don't listen to them. When a child cries in, at a wedding or at a dinner party, you slap them and tell them to shut up
Yeah.
instead of saying, what's wrong? We don't validate feelings of children, and therefore we grow up hiding them or suppressing them because, we've never been hurt before. So why would that change suddenly?
Yeah. I just have so many thoughts going on actually after this, just based on what we're saying.
Yeah, and it's a very difficult one because I think everyone on some level goes through this. I think we find it very difficult to be honest with our parents because I personally I find conversations difficult with my parents because I want them to be my friends and I want to be completely honest and open with them, but at the same time I can't because the way that I talk to my friends and the way that I truly and honestly am might be disrespectful to them, even though that's not my intention, but that's how they see it. So it's difficult to create a mutually respectful relationship.
Yeah, and I think with my parents it's just slightly different because until I was probably early 20s this was similar to a relationship, but now my mother and father, especially my mom, has started realizing this exact thing that we're saying. So she's like, respect is two ways. So even now she, based on what's happened in her life and how she's grown up, and I guess, at her age she's come to a realization as well to be like, just because I'm your mom you don't need to respect me, but I should earn that respect. Like, it's not a given. And she makes that really clear. And again, again with extended family members, she's like, you don't need to respect people if they don't respect you. So the movement is happening in my house, and therefore I'm trying to take that now to my younger cousins or other family members. But then it definitely pushes me a little bit more away from like my grandparents because we don't have the same thinking. So I'll go there, and I absolutely love, like, obviously chilling with them and staying with them, but it would only be for a short period of time now because there's certain things that I can't fathom and I just can't handle it. But rather than like attack them in their old age, and that's probably what it is old age, I'm like, do you know what, the elderly don't really want to do that to them. I'm like, I have to leave now and I'll see you again in a week. And people that I thought I could stay with for longer periods of times, I no longer can't because, the point you made earlier, you're Batamiz in the way you speak, you're Batamiz in the way you think, or you're super super like gori, oh you're so white, you're very British. Yeah, well, when the Queen comes on the TV, you're very British as well, mate. So it's not just me.
Exactly. There's all this picking. Um, no, I completely get what you're saying. Um, and yeah, it's really hurtful for me personally when someone elder refers to me as gory or like too Western because I think I have so much love for my own culture and appreciation, and the way that I show it is in ways that I can very honestly pick out what the issues are and say this is how we can fix them. And like, I'm not blindly loving my culture. Like, I know there are flaws, and I really want them to, I want us to move forward and to become a better society and a better culture. And I mean, this is the reason that we started this podcast as well. But for them, it's like, oh, you just want to be Western. You just want to Westernize. And I'm like, I really don't. Just because it's different to the way that you've grown up or different to how your country was 50 years ago does not mean that it's wrong. Evolution in thought, evolution in behavior, everything is considered an enemy because people are so afraid of change. So afraid of change because, just like you said, you're not going to say anything to your grandparents, right? How many people are not saying things to their grandparents, to their parents? Elders don't think they need to change because as soon as someone says something different in the most respectful way, they'll get offended.
But do you know what the worst thing is? When you try and tell them something, they're like, we're 50, this is just the way we are now. हमारा दिमाग ऐसा है, मैं ऐसे ही हूँ, या ऐसे ही.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, I think you're the most Pakistani person I know, so if that's
I
crazy,
think I am, but
that's
I get
crazy if
accused of being
someone.
so Western.
That's what I mean. If someone thinks you're so Western, I can only imagine what people think about me. At this point, this is what the conclusion I've come to. Is you're probably the most Pakistani person I know. But yeah, but I definitely think it's not. I think I believe that we need to. I actively say that you need to show up, speak up, stand up, and the point being that if we want to change things, we need to be ready to take a little bit of the heat, but stand up for what we think is right and speak up for what we think is right and take a little bit of the heat. Otherwise, we're going to go back in this loop and loop and loop. That loop is not going to help anyone. And yet when we're talking to our friends and talking to our peers, we're going to moan and whine about, oh, this culture's this culture's that, this is how I feel, this is what's going on. But then when you're with your families, especially, and you're validating their remarks and their opinions, it's not going to help anyone. So really, we're causing the issues for ourselves. And one of the reasons why I'm so adamant to do that is I want my family to live a freer life. And that's what I literally mean a freer life. I think free of these expectations, these norms, these lokya kahenge moments that they have constantly. I want them to live a free life. But also I think about my future generation, my cousins, hopefully the future kids I'll have, and I want them to live a freer life where they can embed their culture and their values, but they can live a value-based life, and they can really think, right, I know that I have the opinion, I know I can stand up for myself, I know that if things go wrong, my family will back me and they will support me. And that is what we need to bring into the future generation, is knowing that if you fall down, I'll pick you back up. I might take you home and I might tell you off, but I won't do it in front of public. And that's a massive thing to change.
Yeah, and that is rooted in respecting your child from the day they're born, respecting them as a whole human being, instead of a pet or something that you need to teach constantly to be like you, or to be the way that society wanted you to be, things like that. And definitely agree with, speak up, but you need to be very tactical about it, because if you, even when you're tactical about it, there will be heat, there will be objection to what you're saying, and there will be friction, because no matter what opinion you have, if it's even slightly different, there's always going to be friction. And being tactical about it, saying things respectfully, I think is very important, because at the end of the day, what our culture is trying to teach us is a good thing. But it's just that it's mixed with this need for people to feel powerful, or for people to be so validated that they can't stand someone speaking up against them. So it's sort of taken in the wrong way. But I definitely agree with, like I said before, I definitely agree with speaking up, whether it's to your grandparents or to your parents or to your uncles and aunties, and do it in a tactical way. It will be difficult. It's always difficult to say something that's different from everyone else, but know that you are going to be raising another generation, the next generation, and your generation with your friends and your circle. You should be growing up to be better human beings, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're too Western, or you're too you're too Eastern, you're too South Asian. You can have the values that you learn throughout your life, regardless of what culture they come from, and they can make you a whole better human being.
My name is Sonya, and my beautiful co-host is Zoha. We look forward to hearing what you have to say. Please do get in touch via our socials, which are at LKKG Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, and LKKG Podcast at gmail.com.